In Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds starring Tom Cruise, there's quite a massive change to the plot that, while it isn't really brought up in the film that much and doesn't affect its story massively, leaves questions that, when thought about for too long, reveal quite sinister answers. This is of course the fact that the aliens don't arrive with the tripods, as the Martians do in the book in their capsules. Instead, the tripods are already here, buried underneath the earth, and the aliens instead arrive riding on the lightning that they create, going through the ground to reach the tripods before rising up and initiating their invasion. This is something that is quite divisive. Quite a few people criticise this change from the original story, but it's also one that adds quite a terrifying twist to the whole of human history. Firstly though, the reason in the real world for this change in the first place was because Spielberg wanted to avoid the trope of aliens coming down in flying machines, saying, you know, we've seen that in every invasion movie America has ever made about Martians and aliens. He himself had already done 2 previous films in which aliens came down in spaceships, so it's kind of understandable that he wanted to do something different. Although I think he would have been forgiven for indulging in this cliche when adapting The War of the Worlds, considering I think it's basically the story that invented this concept arguably. Despite the attempt at originality by making it so the tripods were here all along, this idea gets criticised, in particular because it begs the question: if they had been here before, back when humans didn't have modern technology that they did in 2005, why didn't they just take over then? Why did they instead come here, bury the machines, go away again, and then come back thousands of years later to conquer the planet? As many people say, it seems like just a very short-sighted plot hole that wasn't thought about. And to be fair, that genuinely might just be what it is. I'm not trying to say it's not. But if you actually do try to rationalise it, you're presented with a rather disturbing explanation. The primary thing that's changed since the aliens were here before is the human population, which has greatly increased since the presumably thousands or even millions of years, as it's suggested in the film, when they were here last. It's shown in the movie, but even more so in the book, that the invaders needed humanity for their blood. It's noted in the source material that the Martians have no organs for digestion and instead sustain themselves by mechanically transfusing blood from humans via pipettes. Even if this isn't exactly the case in the film, or at least isn't shown exactly like that, it seems to be more intended that they're using blood as fertilizer, but either way it's still clear that they needed humans. So that's why they went away, to let us swarm and multiply until there's billions of us all over the planet, so they could come back and commence a very fruitful harvest. They were using the humans effectively as food animals. Maybe, and this is something that's just occurred to me while thinking about this, but maybe they did conquer humanity when they were here last a long time ago and had been in control of the planet for a number of years, before using up most of the population and realising that they needed to conserve what was left to avoid a total massacre of mankind, or from their perspective, the loss of their resource. Much as our societies are trying to conserve resources it once used in great quantities, after realising it's used so much of it, humans became a valuable but dwindling resource, just as coal or oil is purportedly to humans now. So the conquerors buried their harvesting machines and departed, patiently observing as the human race reproduced to the greater numbers required before finally returning. The reason this is so chilling is because it effectively means that all humans, every single one of us, has literally just been bred as a livestock animal in an alien farm, destined to be harvested by these invaders. It's such a fascinating but grim concept. However, I think the biggest plot hole to this idea is the fact that the invaders were defeated in the film due to dying from the viruses and bacteria, which makes you wonder, Why didn't they die for the same reasons when they were here previously? And well, that is a plot hole that I haven't seen a decent answer to, other than the only thing that I could come up with being the idea that the invaders died because they'd become so advanced that they'd eliminated all idea of viruses and that kind of thing. They'd gotten rid of it all to the point that there was none from where they come from, and they hadn't had to deal with that for countless years. But what if they weren't that advanced when they were here previously and hadn't yet become a bacterialist species? Meaning they were able to put up a defense to the viruses they encountered here. A protection that they eventually lost after they fully eradicated bacteria from their own society and after spending many millennia without having to deal with them any longer. I don't think it's specifically said when they buried the tripods. Ogilvy in the film says they've been here for millions of years, but as if anyone actually knows, it's all just speculation at that point. But it was clearly quite a while. Some have said they were here in prehistoric times. And I could imagine that being the case, considering I feel like that'd be such a long time ago that there would basically be little to no evidence of them previously having been here. Because that's another plot hole that people bring up. Why didn't we notice that there were these massive machines underneath the Earth? Surely at least one would have been found. At the same time though, these aliens are so incredibly advanced, and they did bury them so long ago, that it's probably feasible that they're so deep down under the Earth that by 2005 humanity wouldn't have been aware, or even if they had some idea, it likely would have been secret information held by places like Area 51 or whatever. However, interestingly, the screenwriter of the film, David Cope, said that another reason Spielberg didn't want them coming down in spaceships was because kind of the opposite of this criticism. He said that if they arrived in spaceships, we'd have known about it long in advance in this day and age due to the modern technology and telescopes and whatnot that we have, which would have ruined the sudden nature and surprise of the invasion. Cope has also said that he believes the reason the tripods were planted on the Earth was as part of what he called a contingency plan. Although it's never explicitly stated what this is, it's well possible that it's the same reason as the Martians in the original story. Maybe their planet, whatever one in this case it may be, is dying, but perhaps they foresaw this eventuality, in much of the way humanity in the real world seems to be intending to eventually make it to Mars and other planets to set up colonies and expand among the stars, to avoid the inevitable destruction of the Earth when the sun expands in billions of years. Similarly, maybe the aliens in the film were able to predict the death of their own planet and prepared for this outcome potentially millions of years in advance, complete with their own livestock. This would especially be necessary if, like in the book, the aliens' native food source would die on the journey to their new world. Maybe they even did the same thing to other planets too. It makes you wonder if they really put all their eggs or living food in one basket. Although overall no answer is provided in the film in respect to this plot change, and this is a legitimate criticism, it's still arguably quite an interesting choice, due to the questions and implications that arise because of it that weren't present in the original story. The characters in the film are too busy trying to survive to spend too much time contemplating the quite terrifying suggestion that human history has essentially been orchestrated and all of humanity just been farmed without realizing it. We consider ourselves to be the dominant race of this world while being ignorant of the fact that really, we're simply the livestock of a far superior species that, after a millennia of waiting, finally comes to reap their harvest in 2005, War of the Worlds.